Welcome back to Sports Video, our online course going over sports video equipment. Let's jump in. I have been a little impressed by how much equipment I've had to buy to professionally stream sports. Don't get overwhelmed. There is a lot, but it's kind of one of those things you start with the basics and you build on top. Successful sports production, choosing the right equipment is key. The gear will determine how successful your broadcast is. And I want to go over some of the essential tools that are needed for sports production. Cameras, right? So we've got all kinds of different cameras. I was at the 2025 Lancaster Archery Classic this weekend, and you can see how many cameras they have, right? I think they have like 12 or 14 different cameras. They were doing some really amazing stuff. Really enjoyed watching them. They were using PTZ cameras. They were using cameras with jibs on the top. They had thousands of viewers on YouTube. And it was really incredible to see kind of what they're up to. And quite frankly, they were using a mixture of consumer cameras, professional cameras, and PTZ cameras. So it's all over the map, even at the highest levels. Of course, on NFL, you're only going to see broadcast cameras. But if you're doing high school sports, if you're doing youth sports, if you're doing college sports, be realistic, right? Get the cameras that you need and consider how are they going to be all connected together. That's a big one to think about. And we're going to look at some of those options. In some of my sports cases, I'll use a computer, right? And I'll just use NDI and I'll bring the video sources in over the network. In other cases, if I really want to get like 4K 60, the highest quality production, I will use a dedicated recorder. There's a lot of different things depending on what you want to do. Do you want to do instant replay? Do you want to just do sports analytics, right? You can just record the video directly into a sports analytics software. So there's a lot of different options for this kind of stuff. And the cool thing is that like, this is a television truck, obviously, that maybe not obviously, but that is a television truck that is really popular. And honestly, I'm not being paid to say this, but like some of these new little touchscreen controllers like the YOLO box put a television truck into your hands for like $1,000 with a little controller. So it's pretty incredible what can be done today. It's just awesome. Now, the first thing I want to mention is no matter what you're doing, I would recommend doing 60 FPS. And I don't know why that's cut off a little bit. Move that over. 60 FPS, 60 frames per second is super important for sports production. It's twice as much as what would be normal. And when I say what would be normal, I mean basically 30 frames a second is normal and 60 frames a second is twice as fast. It's more clear, it's more fluid. You do need to adjust the shutter speed as we talked about in our last video. Usually if you're doing 60 frames a second, you want to do 1/120th of frames per second as far as the shutter speed. And so it takes a little bit more processing power and broadcasting technology to do the full 60 frames. But then when you look at the sports and the fast action, right? When you look at the puck moving and you want to actually be able to see that puck in the recording, that's the difference, right? These fast moving sports can look blurry at 30 frames a second, especially as you can see here where we're doing instant replay and we're scrubbing backwards in time and trying to show, video in slow motion. That's a big deal when we're going, because you have twice as many frames to show when you're going in slow motion. So I highly recommend investing in technology that supports at least 60 frames a second. Now, another thing to think about is 1080p versus 4K. Now, the 30 frames a second versus 60 frames a second is very crystal clear. The other difference is 1080p to 4K. 4K is literally 4 times as many pixels. So even if you're just using a 4K camera in 1080p mode, it makes a big difference because the sensor is so much bigger. So again, people care about the crispness and the quality of the video. And so even if your computer can only handle 1080p or the video switcher you have is 1080p, you might want to get a 4K camera, even if you're using it in 1080p mode, because it looks that much sharper. And the 4K cameras have come down in price significantly. So 4K, 60 frames a second is the best you can do. 1080p at 60, not bad. 1080p at 30, when you start doing slow motion, it's going to look a little choppy. So something to think about. Another big thing is tripods, and you'll see tripods all over the place. This is at Salesianum High School. You can see they've got a little tripod here. I have a huge tripod that I recommend in the book that gets your cameras up like 12 feet tall. These tripods are becoming a lot more popular and they're easier to get these days. This is a tripod that'll get you up above the athletes, right? Up above parents and the fans. I've actually been to multiple games where the parents stood right in front of my cameras and I couldn't see much with my cameras, so I had to go and luckily extend them. So think about getting a good tripod. You don't need a tripod with a handle if you're doing a PTZ camera, but if you are doing a camcorder, you want one with a little flexibility so you can move it up and down. Regarding audio is an incredibly important part of all of this. You'll see in this video, for example, that we have some of the audio headsets for communication between the producers. You also want to have audio for commentators, and commentators really add the flavor of the video. And you can do that via a lapel microphone, a lavalier. You can use a shotgun microphone, and I'm going to show some examples of all of this. But I highly recommend, and I think in my next slide here, I talk about, in fact, there's going to be a whole section in the next chapter on working with commentators, so I'll jump into that in more detail, but I'll give actual headset and microphone recommendations. Now, the other thing beyond just the headset and microphone, which is sometimes enough, as long as you've got a good commentator, you've probably got a good broadcast and recording. But if you want to capture the swoosh of a basketball going into a net or the slap of a hockey puck, you might need a shotgun microphone. And I cover that in a little bit more detail in the next production, next slide deck for the next chapter. Parabolic microphones, these are really cool. What this can do, you see this a lot of times on the sidelines of like an NFL game or a football game. If you want to hear like the crashing of the players' helmets into each other, this can be done with one of these. It's a really cool technology. It's not that expensive. I put the part numbers of this Clover Sound Shark device in the book. But these are really great for, it's almost like an optical zoom lens for audio. And then here's that picture of a crowd mic. So I've done this quite a few times where I'll mount a microphone onto a clamp mounted onto like a pole or a beam or a piece of glass. And this is a highly sensitive sometimes it has wind protection for using it outdoors, and it can get the crowd reactions and, different audio from the game. Now, for commentary microphones, generally you want to use a dynamic or a condenser microphone with a cardioid pickup. Some of these have built-in pop filters and shock mounts, depending on what you're doing. And then you can have play-by-play commentary. These talkback systems here allow you to, as a presenter, to cough, right? If you have a cough, there's a cough button. If you have the ability to send audio back to the commentators so that you can talk to them as a producer, these little live sports boxes are really popular. And this one is one from Whirlwind, the THS4. That these are very popular. Now, from a streaming hardware and software system perspective, you'll note, it's all over the map. Like this is the Professional World Archery Competition, and you'll see they're using OBS. It's a free live streaming software to live stream to YouTube. Now, that being said, they also have a Ross Carbonite switcher there, which is I think it's a 14 or 16 channel video mixer. So you can see that in this course, when you're learning about OBS, which is a free live streaming software, and you're seeing some of the highest end video production solutions, it's really depends on what you want to do and how far you want to take this. This is obviously this is a software solution called vMix that I use for like 4 to 6 cameras. This is really popular for sports. They have a great instant replay solution. And you can see how I have multiple computers connected together. And then, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of the YOLO boxes. The YOLO boxes for sports are awesome. These little touchscreen monitors that allow you to record, stream, and have graphics and overlays. I've been just a huge fan of those as well. So there's a lot of different solutions on the market. In fact, when we talk about capture cards, capture cards are how do we capture HDMI or SDI video into either a computer or a touchscreen like this, these little YOLO boxes. Essentially, cameras that aren't connected to the network, they don't support NDI. We have to capture them with an HDMI or SDI input, whether that be into a software like vMix or Wirecast or OBS, or into one of these touchscreen boxes like the YOLO boxes. So that's how we capture video if it's not already on the network into our systems. And then another piece of equipment to think about is if you have a video display, right? If you have a television, a giant TV, which I think you can sort of see in this Lancaster Archery above at the top there, there was a giant LED screen there that we were broadcasting to. But if you've got a giant LED wall, how are you going to get video to that? And sometimes you have to extend HDMI over Cat5 for long distances. Or you can use NDI. As long as you can get a network cable from your network up to here, you can decode NDI with an NDI to HDMI converter that will convert it from the network to HDMI so you can plug it up on a display. Or you might just be working with smart TVs, right? If you have a smart TV that you can put YouTube on, you can do that in a lobby or in a different area. It's a little delayed, but it works. So something to think about. And then finally, some of the essential accessories that we show in some of our videos, and I'm going to do more behind the scenes videos. But this is a cable reel, right? And so from time to time, when I am capturing these shots that are, far away, let me see if I can find one of these. I think in this video, you can sort of see there's this shot behind the net. That camera was about 300 feet away and maybe 150. And that camera number 5 there, I had to run a 300-foot cable reel. I usually bring 2 of these with me so I can run it all the way out, power the camera, get the NDI video over the network, and bring that over. Another important tool is PoE network switches. Even if you're doing this is my small little tripod warrior system here, just a couple PoE connections. These are like $40. They power your cameras, connect everything together. Super important to have in most modern productions. And then a Wi-Fi router. And in the book, I talk about how to extend wireless connectivity across a baseball field to get an outfield, shot from all the way from kind of like center outfield to shoot back at the batters over the pitcher's mound. You can do that with wireless access points and Wi-Fi bridges. So those are some of the tools to be successful for sports streaming. Obviously, I can't include everything. There's more details in the book. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. See you in the next video.